Thank you all so much for coming. So the theme today is Confidence Unleashed. The way we're going to tackle this theme is I'm going to tell you one story and then give you 3 takeaways. But first, and then we're going to have a Q&A. But first, I'd like to hear from you. If I could give you unshakable confidence like these guys have, just, let's say, in an Amazon package or in a Zalando package, what would you do with it? Just raise your hand and we have a floating microphone. What would you do with unshakable confidence? Would you challenge your boss? Would you launch a new product? Would you change your career? I'd love to hear what you would do if you had all the confidence in the world.
Who has the confidence to answer? There we go. You get a Haribo bag.
I would have started my own business. That's something that I've always wanted to do, but I don't dare doing that.
We don't dare to start our own businesses. Yes. What else will we do with confidence? Would somebody change their career?
Not only career, but also our lives. I quit smoking. I started traveling to Asia. I started to import from India, from China. I came here for inspiration. Thank you.
Wonderful. Change your life completely. Get healthy and find new inspiration. With this and many more are the projects that you might do with unshakable confidence. I want to start us off with a story. Most probably you know this story already. It's the story from Hans Christian Andersen, The Emperor's New Clothes. Do you remember about it? There is this emperor, a very vain emperor, always caring about what they're wearing. And these con artists, today would call them scammers, they come to court and they say they are going to create a garment that is so refined and is so beautiful that only the wise, only the people worthy of their position will be able to actually see it. And they get to work, and the emperor sends his ministers, and the ministers go to these con men, and they see nothing. And these con men present these garments and say how beautiful they are. And the ministries don't want to reveal that they're not wise. They don't want to reveal that they are not worthy of their post. And so they say nothing, and they come back to the emperor and say, they are so beautiful. Until the day the emperor himself sees these clothes. Well, he sees nothing at all, but he has to believe, because otherwise he himself would reveal that he's not worthy of his post. And so finally comes the day of the parade. The tailors, they ask the emperor to undress. They fit him. They even adjust all the parts of this fake dress, a dress that doesn't exist. And the emperor walks in front of the whole population. And the population knows. The population knows that these are clothes that are so refined that only somebody who's wise and worthy will be able to see them. So nobody says anything until a small child points at the emperor and says, he's not wearing anything at all. And the whole town whispers until they shout, the emperor is not wearing any clothes. And the emperor, having heard that, walks on with even more pride. Now, this is a story of overconfidence. But we don't want overconfidence. Actually, we want the courage to be confident. Anais Nin says that life shrinks or expands to the dimensions of our courage. And I think we need a lot of courage, for instance, to change our lives completely. And this next quotation is attributed to Mark Twain, and as usual, it's not really a Mark Twain quotation. But there's 2 really important days in your life. The day you're born and the day you find out why. Now, if you had unshakable courage, and if you had found your why, then you would be set with confidence for life. But in case you don't, you're in the right place, because you have me. My name is Matteo Cassese, and I'm on a mission. I want to give everyone a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, and I want to enable everyone to do the impact that they want to have and they want to give on this planet. The way I'm starting is through coaching entrepreneurs. And I'm a little more than a mindset coach. I'm much more than a business coach. I'm a shadow partner. I'm a sparring partner to extraordinary people who want to do extraordinary things. When I talk about myself and I introduce myself, I'm always tempted by talking about my accomplishments and everything that is linear in my life. But maybe I could tell you that I've coached executives and founders in incredible companies, that I've consulted for unicorns like Netflix, that I am a recovering corporate marketer myself, having worked for over 10 years for multinational companies like Telefonica or Warner Brothers. But this idea that life is linear, that you begin by studying, you go to uni, you find a job, you find a series of jobs, you retire, is not only a lie, we know that, okay? We know that life is disruption, but it's also not really interesting. I think this is a much more interesting life. Now here, I introduce you to the gap, and if you were an old convertible, you'd be stuck. You need a bridge. And nobody's building a bridge for you, I'm sorry. Your temptation would be to jump, like Super Mario, and get to the other side. Why would you want to jump? Well, I can tell you for sure, there's a lot of discomfort in here. There is a lot of pain, and there's a lot of things that go wrong in the gap. I know something about the gap. I've been living in the gap my whole life. I use the gap all the time. I just did it in storytelling. I told you, do you remember the story of the emperor's new clothes? I just did that. And every time we, for instance, want to create a desire for a product, that's a gap. I want it, I don't have it, I need to click add to cart. But there are gaps everywhere. I think that a lot of you here are innovators. A lot of you here, for instance, have advanced AI, crypto-based platforms. Outside of these walls, there's people that want to pay in cash, and you are creating blockchain technology. You are in this gap. This gap is full of stuff. And I've been in this gap my whole life, and probably that's my superpower, is to be able to be comfortable in this gap. Another example is that I am queer, and society is still very, very straight. And there are so many examples where my clients find themselves to need to go to an uncomfortable place. Let me tell you about Stefania for a second. Stefania comes to me and she says, I'm at a career transition. Something is off. I can't be a consultant anymore. There must be something more interesting for me. And then she tells me her father is an entrepreneur. Her mother helped her father at the company. It was the backbone of the company. Her brother is an entrepreneur. You catch my drift, right? But the dad, before passing, said, my dear daughter, the entrepreneur's life is hard. I don't wish that for you. I hope that you have a simpler life. And how hard it is not to abide to the promise and to the desire of your own father. But that's exactly what she needed to do, the uncomfortable decision that she's making right now to become an entrepreneur. And I'm no stranger to making missteps. For many years, I've been a teacher. I've thought that I could teach confidence to people. And I've realized I can't. And to do so, I had to shut down a company, fire all my clients, burn my savings, and think like an entrepreneur and do something radically different, and give myself the courage to become a coach rather than a teacher, and start helping individuals in a tailored way rather than trying to build that scalable product that everybody tells us we should do. But up until now, we have defined that we shouldn't be naked, we have defined that we need courage, and we have defined that we need our why, we need our purpose. But we haven't defined the confines of confidence. Now, I want to share with you this simple graph. All the way over here, over here actually, there's the insecure. Now, we're in the middle of networking. Actually, the mad networking started at 3:30 already. And what would an insecure posture be right now? Like, I wonder what I should do. I wonder if I should get out. I wonder if I should get a drink. I wonder if I shouldn't. I wonder if it's appropriate. I wonder if I should get some food. This is what the insecure would do. What would the overconfident do? The overconfident would most probably say, I'm thirsty, I want a beer, and everybody wants a beer, and so I've ordered beer for everyone. I wonder, do you have anyone who is overconfident in your life? Raise your hand if you do. Do you know anybody who's overconfident? I see a few hands, let's say 10% of you. Are you sure? No more? Okay, keep your hands up. Are these people your bosses or in a position of power? I would say only 3%. So we're good. We are very good in this. We are very good in this. The problem is we have elections coming up, so I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. But after this conversation, don't vote for the overconfident, because we haven't defined confident. Well, confident is somebody who, in the networking situation, would say, I'm really thirsty. I love a drink. I wonder if you'd also love a drink. What do you think? Shall we go grab one? And notice that while the insecure is only worried about other people, what would they think of me? And the overconfident is only worried about themselves, like, I'm thirsty. The confident is, in fact, vulnerable, tells other people how they are feeling, and they say, well, I feel like this, how do you feel? They have empathy for themselves and empathy for other people. Now, when it comes to being vulnerable, well, I have a ton of stories about being vulnerable, but I'm reminded of the work that I'm doing with Sophie. And Sophie came to me as an entrepreneur, and she had a tech co-founder, and she had an AI-powered software, and she had a SaaS business model, and she had an excellent pitch deck, and she was about to get funding. So she was doing everything by the book. And she felt that something was off. And what we uncovered in one-to-one coaching was another truth, that she really didn't want the money, because then she would have to fulfill the mission. And she was not really connected with the mission. And that actually she had a dream that in 3 to 10 years, she would create a community of powerful women and invite them to incredible retreats. Guess what I did? I pulled this timeline all the way to the present and challenged her. Why are we doing this now? What's missing? What was missing was the vulnerability of ripping the playbook and saying, I'm going to do things my own way. Sophie calls it her inner compass. I call it a gut feeling. It's when you have the feeling that you are doing something that aligns with who you are. And I think this ability to let people feel good when they're vulnerable, this is something that we can all give to each other, and I invite you to give to each other. So the first point I made is there is a gap. It's not filled with good stuff. It's uncomfortable, but you should spend some more time there. The second point is that oftentimes we see the overconfident as confident. Instead, the real confidence comes from vulnerability. But now, before we break for some Q&A, I want to make the most important point. We have this little graph here, low to high. Low confidence all the way over here. High confidence all the way over here. What do you think should be on this range? Like, for a big life decision, where should I be? Should I be in the high confidence? What do you think? For a big life decision, just one hand up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, a few hands. To launch a campaign, to launch a product, to maybe I'm adding a coupon, a discount, a Black Friday sale. Should I have low or high? Should I have a high confidence? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who says I should have a low confidence in this case on the campaign? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I need to change your mind. Okay, so this is really important. I have a YouTube channel. And by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should subscribe. And anyway, you should look for my channel. But I have a YouTube channel, and when I publish a video, I have an extremely low confidence on that video. I actually treat that video as an experiment, a throwaway thing. Like, I do something, I give it to the world. The world tells me, is this good or bad? In terms of views. Maybe it's not even a valuation of, is it good or bad? It's just the internet. It's like my Black Friday launch. I don't know if it's going to work. What's important is that I review the data from the launch, I review the data from the video, and I learn from it. That's the important thing. So what I want to tell you is that you need to be extremely confident about who you are, about what you stand for, about your why. I want you to be unshakably confident about your ethics, about your family, about your ties, about your heart, about your intuition. You will change over time, but you don't change so quickly. I want you to be extremely confident. For instance, right now, I'm extremely confident in the energy that I'm using to deliver this to you. But I'm not so confident that this slide is actually working, okay? I have a very low confidence in how I'm saying, what I'm saying, if this is going to land, if this is a good way of presenting this argument. I have total confidence in the person. I have low confidence in the artifact. And so if you were an entrepreneur, you would have some confidence on the mission. A little less confidence than in you, some confidence in the mission. Maybe the mission needs to change. Maybe we all change behavior in 3 years because of some technological impact. Maybe your mission hasn't taken into account some stuff that might happen on the planet. And you should be confident in your team, but a little less confident. Not as confident as in you and your mission. And you should be confident in the audience that you talk to, but not as confident as in you and your mission. And finally, when we talk about the product, the launch, the campaign, the artifact, the YouTube video, this talk, have low confidence. Allow your kids to fail. Allow the products of your ingenuity, of your imagination to fail. Allow yourself to learn from them. This is vulnerability. This is courage. This is the absence of overconfidence. The emperor didn't want to admit that they failed. They didn't want to admit that they got scammed. They walked even prouder. I don't want that to happen to you. So, if you're up for a little exercise in vulnerability, who of you is not allowing their children to fail? Who of you is not letting the things you do have really low confidence while you're having a really high confidence in yourself? So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, very few people, but I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for this moment of vulnerability. For everybody else, I hope I change your mind on the fact that when you launch that product, when you go into that meeting, when you meet the board, it's important who you are and how you show up. But it's really not important what you say. You can say whatever you want. All right. So we didn't have a lot of time, but we already, well, you got a reminder of one of my favorite stories. Please start enjoying the gap. How do you practically do this? Tune down distraction. So don't get distracted by stuff. Try to stay in the moment. Try to stay in the moments of discomfort. The way I do that, I delete social media apps. I listen to fewer podcasts. I watch less videos. I spend more time by myself. I go on walks. There's a lot of discomfort when you start doing these things. If you do them regularly, you will get into the gap. In the gap, you'll have access to your intuition, what Sophie calls her inner compass. Once you find your inner compass, you can change your life, and you can do whatever you want. Let's reframe confidence as vulnerability. Way too often, we consider confidence to be overconfidence, because it shows up so confident, the overconfidence, right? And it's hard not to be enticed by that appeal. But actually, if you see it right, the moment that you are more open, the moment that you are allowing yourself to be more you, as we said before, that's the moment where you have all of the confidence in the world. And finally, let your children fail. Let your projects fail. Allow to learn. Allow to measure. Use the measuring frameworks when you get to producing stuff. But just care about the energy that you have when you bring these things to life. I hope you're thinking about questions. We're gonna enter a Q&A in a second. I'd like to keep this conversation going, and the way I'd like to do that is by inviting you to an extended online Q&A. If you scan that QR code, we can have a Zoom call, and together we can have way more than 5 minutes to ask ourselves, where do we need confidence? Where does confidence come from? What are you going to do with unshakable confidence? And what's next in your path in life? So please scan this code so that the magical happening that is in this room right now can transform into something else and can transform into us continuing this conversation. Thank you so much for making it this far. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to your questions.
Hi, Matteo. Thanks for the great talk. I have 2 questions, actually. The The first one is like, is it right to say that if I'm very confident, I'm also very optimistic? Is there a relation? Because why I'm asking you this question is that I've seen that when I'm very confident about, especially about long term and short term, right? You had a very good question there. So if I'm very confident about my short term tasks, I'm not. I ignore the risks which I could face in the short term, which increases, which makes my project or whatever task I'm working on not risk proof. So that's why I answered that when I'm thinking about short-term tasks, I'm a little bit less confident and less optimistic, a little bit pessimistic to make sure that I'm covering all risks. So how do you see confidence and optimism connected?
I think it's the same thing that we were looking at here, right? Is that if you have really low confidence on the thing that you're actually going to do, you can be very optimistic about it because you're not attaching yourself to the outcome, you see? And you're not attaching your success metrics to the outcome. And so I think it's really important to be optimistic whenever you're thinking short term, and maybe be pessimistic and problem-oriented when you're thinking about it in the long-term kind of way. Does that make sense?
Hi. So confidence and overconfidence looks like a very thin, fine line on it, and how to do it. Because, for example, I'm trying to, or in my mind, to have a new venture. For me, I'm a little confident it might work, but then also there's a thing that you let the child to fail. That's one. But then if anyone else sees from external eyes, it's like overconfident, might not work. So how do you define, or what would be the best on that case?
What I would do if we were in a coaching situation is I would go away from what is the product that you're putting on the market and the business model, etc., and dig into your motivation for doing that. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, when I ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? The least thing that they do is to tell me that there is a 5.4 billion opportunity and the market is growing and and their expected LTV to CAGR is really good. They really usually tell me like, well, I was back home and I was on a coffee plantation and I realized I can really help coffee farmers and I've decided to do it. Or, well, I got fired because I didn't have the courage to fire myself, and it's now or never. And so usually that energy is the one that leads to confidence. Putting all of the confidence in the business model, the market opportunity, etc., usually is the thing that leads entrepreneurs to failure, in my experience. So that's the beginning of a 10-hour coaching session that we're not having right now, but we can have later. Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Got a question in the back.
Yeah, I was just, my name is Richie. I just was like, listen what you say about confident, right? And I was like, I ask myself sometimes, when you have, like a really high confident, and you do sometimes, you do fail. Someone around the corner would say, you got to put passion to it, right? So the question is that those both things, right? Passion, confident, what exists longer? Does the passion more work or just confident? Because sometimes, you do confident and suddenly you're low confident, right? It depends on, of course, the outcome, the experience. And sometimes I have the feeling no one can explain it. So what's the myth about that?
If the passion is true, which is, I'm sorry, it's a really bad answer. But how do you define then, where does the passion come from? Because we are bombarded with information right now. Like, I'm scared of going into the expo booth right now, because there's so many interesting companies and so many interesting business models, and I feel that I might be swayed one way or the other, right, into switching vendors and finding a new marketing opportunity, etc. And so my question to you would be, what is the source of that passion? Because if that passion is connected with your identity, is connected with who you are, is linked to the things that you naturally did since you were a child, and the things you have always been drawn to, that's not going to get exhausted in a month of grinding and trying to get your startup off the ground. If that passion instead is the influence of other people, the expectation of a father, like in Stefania's story, then that's another kind of story. Do we have time for another question? Yeah. Wonderful.
Tell me, please, we talk about courage. When is it the final time to say, stop, I give up this project, it's bad, it's wrong? You asked for tough questions.
Oh yeah, please. When you stop learning. I think when you stop learning and when you realize that you're in a loop. But you're learning a ton. Like the first time I went on stage, it wasn't great, but I learned a ton. And then I didn't do all the things that were bad. And now later I'm going to review the video. I'm going to see all the bad things I did today. I'm not going to do it the next time. And so I'll never stop speaking on stage because I get to learn, and I get to learn from you. I get to learn from the audience. I get to learn if you have overconfident people in your life, etc. And so whenever I see that I'm in a loop of understanding, it doesn't matter the business model. Are you leads? Do I need more leads? I don't even know. Okay? Am I here because I'm marketing? Yeah, sure. What are my KPIs? I don't know. My KPI is being me on the stage. Have I done that? Yeah. Okay. Check. Success. So I hope this is a good answer for you, that it's just a matter of if you are still in play and if you are still learning from it and if you're still changing, then go on.